Iran's Deputy Health Minister Iraj Harichi has tested positive for COVID-19, heightening concern over spread of the deadly disease. Just yesterday, he was seen mopping his brow repeatedly at a news conference as he defended the government against reports it was lying about the scale of the COVID-19 outbreak. The country has reported 95 cases of the virus with 16 deaths. Here's Simon Pusey with more international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel studio in London for your international news around the world in 5. The number of people confirmed as injured after a car ploughed into a carnival crowd in Western Germany has risen to 52, according to police. 18 of those hurt in Monday's incident are children. In total, 35 people remain in hospital. A 29-year-old German citizen was arrested on suspicion of attempted homicide in the town of Volkmarsen. Der Spiegel says the suspect was drunk at the time, although this is unconfirmed and police say the motive is unclear. A second person has also been arrested for allegedly filming the incident. 7 people have been killed in Delhi in protests against India's controversial new citizenship law, as US President Donald Trump made his first official visit to the country. Mr. Trump's visit has been marred by the deadliest religious violence in the Indian capital in decades. Violence has erupted again in parts of northeastern Delhi, which saw deadly clashes between supporters and opponents of the law on Monday night. There are fears of further clashes. 2 journalists have been attacked, and there are reports that mobs are throwing stones and shouting slogans. Earlier, Donald Trump sat down for one-on-one talks with Prime Minister Modi before delegation-level meetings, which were followed by announcements that deals had been signed to buy helicopters for the Indian military. A hotel in Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands has been locked down after a visiting Italian doctor tested positive for the coronavirus. Hundreds of guests at the H10 Costa Adige Palace Hotel were initially told to stay in their rooms as medical tests were carried out. The doctor is reportedly from the Lombardy region, where Italian authorities are battling an outbreak. Italy currently has the largest number of confirmed cases in Europe. It raised that total on Tuesday to 283. 7 people have so far died. Meanwhile, in Iran, one of the worst affected nations outside China, the country's deputy health minister, Iraj Harichi, has tested positive for the virus. He was seen on Monday at a press conference wiping away sweat so many times that an aide had to bring him more tissues. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak has died in Cairo at the age of 91. Mubarak spent 3 decades in office before a popular uprising swept Egypt. He was ousted by the military in 2011 and later found guilty of complicity in the killing of protesters during the revolution. However, that conviction was overturned and he was freed in March 2017. His death was confirmed by Egyptian state news on Tuesday. A group of 76 Ethiopian refugees voluntarily returned home from Kenya's Kakuma camp last week to be reunited with their families after living in exile for years. This marks the first major voluntary repatriation program for Ethiopian refugees in the country. The movement, supported by the UN Refugee Agency (UNHCR) and the governments of Ethiopia and Kenya, is part of a growing trend of thousands of Ethiopian refugees in the region who are choosing to return to go back home, excited by political and economic reforms taking place in the country. Turkey's President Tayyip Recep Erdogan has announced the death of 2 Turkish troops in Libya. Speaking at a news conference, he said 2 martyrs had been killed in the country. Turkey has been providing military support to the Tripoli-based government of national accord. It comes a week after the army of Khalifa Haftar shelled Tripoli's seaport for the first time. The port is a major entry gate for wheat, fuel and food imports, and also a supply base for Turkey. Residents in Jakarta have been evacuating the city on rubber dinghies and trucks after flooding paralysed large parts of the Indonesian capital city. Commuter lines were disrupted as water levels rose above dangerous levels in the city. The Jakarta government said more than 200 neighbourhoods were affected by the floods, which were caused by torrential rain. India's weather agency linked the rains to tropical cyclones that brought bad weather to southern parts of the archipelago. It also warned of high waves in the seas south of Java Island. At the beginning of the year, the city was hit by some of the heaviest rain since records began, causing flooding that killed more than 60 people and displaced about 175,000. And finally, there were smiles all round as US First Lady Melania Trump visited a government school in the Indian city of New Delhi that teaches a special happiness curriculum. Sporting a traditional red tilak dot on her forehead and wearing a garland of marigolds, Trump watched children at the school play, do yoga and perform a Bhangra dance. The happiness curriculum was launched by the left-leaning Aam Adami Party in 2018 as a way to foster social skills by having children engage in mindfulness practices, storytelling and drawing. And that's your international news around the world in 5 now. Back to the studios in Nigeria.
Thank you, Simon. Now, will there be a Wilder Fury rematch? Charles Aruka tells us in Sports News.
Thanks, Millicent. Welcome to Sports News. And it does appear former heavyweight world champion Deontay Wilder does say he'll definitely exercise his right to an immediate third fight with Tyson Fury. According to boxing promoter Bob Arum, the trilogy fight is supposed to happen by July the 18th. At the latest. Now to football. Minister of Youth and Sports Development Sunday Dare insists Team Nigeria will be ready to compete at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Japan. Mr. Dare says his ministry will present the athletes with the support and opportunities they need to excel at the multi-sport event. Over in Europe, in the UEFA Champions League, Bayern Munich hammered Chelsea in the round of 16. First leg played at Stamford Bridge. A brace from Sergei Gnabry and Robert Lewandowski gave the Bavarian Giants a very comfortable 3-0 victory. Elsewhere, Napoli were held to a 1-0 draw at the San Paolo Stadium in Naples. Andres Mertens put Napoli ahead in the first half, but Frenchman Antoine Griezmann equalized for Barcelona in the 57th minute. And the Federation Guinea footballers pleaded with the Nigeria Football Federation for the postponement of the FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup second round first leg by 1 week due to the country's legislative election this Saturday. A new date fixed for the match is Saturday, March the 7th, meaning there'll be only 1 week in between the first leg and the return slated for the Agege Stadium in Lagos. And that's it on Sports News. Back to Millicent with a wrap.
Thank you, Charles. And the main news again. The Federal High Court today in Abuja sentenced former People's Democratic Party spokesman Olisa Metu to 7 years in prison after convicting him on 7 counts of fraud and money laundering. Justice Ekona Bang also ordered Mr. Metu to forfeit the sum of 375 million naira to the federal government. That's news at 10 tonight. Many thanks for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night.